I like to think about your content as like digital real estate or something. Like once you make it, it sits there and it goes up in value. Think about it like streams of content. You can paddle upstream, you can be over here in a different one, or you can like get in that and then you're gonna move faster. If you're doing something like over here that's like off topic, it's just harder to get recognized. Brands can interact and look and see what influencers are doing and what's popular, what's getting traction. And those brands can then do those partnerships with those influencers.
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Welcome to the Between Two Pixels podcast. Today, we're talking all things YouTube, and I'm joined by Josh, one of our owners.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. So, let's just get right into it.
Well, I have no idea what you're going to ask me.
I know, so we're going to be super off the cuff, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be great. Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
How did you get started on YouTube? And what drew you to the platform?
Well, before I answer that, I'm going to adjust your mic. Now you can answer that. Okay. So how did I get started on YouTube? Well, I will say a few years ago, let's see, maybe around 2020, 2021, I wanted to explore a little bit more on YouTube because I've noticed that, I'm a huge advocate and consumer of YouTube content. So I pay the premium fee. I don't watch ads. I do all that. And that's probably where I get most of my content from is on YouTube, which that surprises my wife. She's like, what? I don't even use YouTube. Like, what? Do you use YouTube?
I use YouTube.
Okay. So it's my primary, more than even Netflix and all the other streaming services.
That surprises me.
It's my number one place that I watch content. And so we decided, let's play around. Let's try to understand it more. And, in my mind, it was always a place, I think I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right years. I would say around 2015 till 2020, around that time frame. I always thought of it as it's just good for SEO. You put your content there. You put that content on YouTube, you also get it on your site, and people search for you. Those YouTube videos are going to come up in Google because of SEO.
Yeah.
And so it's just hey, just get your stuff out there. And then when YouTube became more of a monetization creator platform type thing, they really started to pour into that side of it. I started seeing such better content on YouTube. It wasn't, it's interesting because the people who got into it back early on, say around the 2015s, 2010s, all that stuff, they don't have to play by the same rules. So it's a little deceiving if you're trying to analyze what's going on YouTube. You're why is this bad thumbnail and not great content getting 100,000 views? And it's well, they've already developed a huge audience. So I was trying to figure out what was going on. And we had some original content with, so we don't just produce content for clients, as you well know, but for people listening, maybe they don't know. We also have content that we own the licensing for. And so we were trying to figure out another way to get revenue off that. And so I was playing around with YouTube a little bit. And that's that's where I started to dip my toe in this next generation of YouTube and learned a lot. It was very eye-opening. And I still don't know everything that I need to know about it because it makes you feel like you're going crazy sometimes trying to get monetized on YouTube or stay monetized on YouTube. But I think it's obviously there's multiple audiences that would create and publish content on YouTube, multiple groups, whether that's content creators, brands. So I think we can talk about some of those if you want and see which ones are relevant.
I would love for you to talk about some of the distinctions, and then also, you kind of touched on this already, it's harder to grow now than it was then.
So one of the things I feel that happened that I've been noticing is all these celebrities figured out, oh, I just need to create a YouTube channel and I can make an extra $100,000 or more a year just doing this. And they don't even have to try that hard because they already have a platform. So anyone who's a public figure already has a platform. And so a lot of people who got into podcasting, that kind of got saturated, and now it's kind of shifted over. They're just taking their podcast to YouTube, or they just are doing both. I mean, you see it in professional sports. Like every athlete has a podcast, where it's like JJ Redick's podcast, I think was maybe like the first like real like basketball YouTube channel type thing, like Old Man and the Three. But now it's like every basketball player has their thing.
Oh,
and then football players is the same way. I think like the Kelsey brothers, like their thing is like really popular, and it like, you know, but now everybody has one. So think about that for any topic. And it's like that, whatever like the most popular person is that's in that space, or the celebrity, even in the academic space, it's like the people who are writing the books and doing different things, like they'll either travel around and be on podcasts, or they just end up creating their own. And then it's like kind of how that works. So it is a lot harder. But I've noticed that good content does most of the time rise to the top. But it's a weird thing, and we can talk about this if you want. Just like what is the right recipe? Like, what are the ingredients in order to get recognized on YouTube? And I mean, I think one of the things is really, what are you trying to achieve? You know, like kind of I reference like the different types of creators. Brands have different goals than YouTube content creators that are trying to make a career out of it. So we could maybe talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a Mr. Beast type person.
Yeah. Like, what's the difference between Mr. Beast is one of those guys that like started early on and then figured out exactly how to grow his audience based on the content, the thumbnails, all the stuff. It came like a ultra specific science. It's not just like he's going to do some big dumb thing. He actually is very specific about the thumbnail creations and the content and like everything about it, down to how the videos are produced. But he also is one of those people that just like started off like way early on. So it's hard. It's not like
the chicken and the egg.
Yeah. Which one is it? It's hard to know. So
can you talk a little about the type of creators on the platform?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the things, would it be helpful to talk about it in light of maybe someone who's listening and trying for them to identify who they are? Yeah.
Figuring out why should we even make a YouTube channel at this point?
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, I think for our clients, it's like brands, any business. And you have to establish like, what's your goal for YouTube? Like, I know for us, I don't necessarily think we're trying to grow our YouTube channel to where we're monetized and we're influencers in the YouTube space, or developing a following. I mean, because one of the things I think that does happen, and that I'm certain of, is that YouTube can't become your primary job as far as your revenue, or creating revenue from an audience on YouTube being monetized, unless it's a full-time thing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean necessarily like you have to make it your full-time job, but you have to think about it all the time. You just being like, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to post it, is not going to get you traction with your audience. You have to pay attention to who's watching, why did this video do better than this other video? So if you're a brand and you want to post stuff and you're like, we just want to get lots of views and like spread our brand awareness. I mean, trying to commit to being like an influencer, or like, I don't even know what the right term is, a professional content creator, a brand doing that is a different thing than being like, we're going to put our stuff out there in order to help SEO and do different things with it. You know, people come to brands, YouTube channels for different aspects. Like, brands could maybe, rather than being the ones that are like, we're going to create our own content and try to engage our audience, you could be a vehicle for influencers to say like, oh, we're going to find all of the different influencers in the space. And by influencers, I mean like celebrities. So
yeah,
so I'm like an obsessive runner at this point. And so I have all these like running people I follow on YouTube, but I also have all these brands that I follow and I watch. I mean, there's different stuff. So this thing in running, let's just take this because it's a good example.
Yeah.
There's like product reviews. So like shoes. There's race reviews. There's like, I did this race and this is what happened. this is how I trained for it. This is what went wrong. So you can like learn from that. There's stories. So you can be like, oh, this person went and did this. They're trying to break this goal, and you follow their whole journey. So like all that's like a mixture. And then there also are brands that will then interview those people, or they'll be like, here, we're reviewing our products and we're talking about this, whether that's like nutrition or whatever it is. So like brands can interact and look at, see what influencers are doing and what's popular, what's getting traction, what people are interested in. And those brands can then do those partnerships with those influencers where they sell their products on their website. They're like, hey, there's a supplement I take that's a black currants. It's supposed to help with recovery. So I found out about it because of a YouTuber that I follow.
You were influenced.
And I went to go buy it on their website, and he is like listed on their website. So it's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. So there's this ecosystem of all this stuff and YouTube is a huge like conduit for brands if you do it in the right way. Now that is complete. So it does overlap with the creators and the influencers, but it isn't necessarily the same thing, but they can leverage a lot of the same space and a lot of the same content themes, or, whatever is trending kind of, like that's a thing that happens on YouTube as well. And I know your expertise is social, and there's certain things that trend, and we're always talking about what's trending, and are we going to participate in that? We're going to create our own content at BP. The same thing happens on YouTube, and it's usually topical. Something starts to release. It's almost like a news cycle.
Yeah.
Things roll out. People make content about that thing, and then it kind of cycles off. And you don't really know why that's happening. Maybe, in academics, a paper is released, or maybe even in sports and running, a new book comes out, or exercise scientist releases a paper, and I'm watching stuff right now on a new paper that came out, and all this new things. Should we do this or should we do that? And then people go around to all the different channels and like talk about it, and everybody's making content about it, So that's kind of, I don't know if that's helpful, but in general, like brands can leverage that, but maybe in a different way. Just like pay attention to what's going on, and then bring in people to talk about those specific things.
Yeah.
And then how their products fit into that conversation.
Do you think it's better for a brand that has actual consumer products, or do you think it's a space where anyone could find success?
So like what would be an example of not consumer
Maybe like
products?
A service.
Like services?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like B2B.
Yeah. I mean, I know like our stuff, like, well, B2B, that's a good question. I mean, the question would be like, what would people be looking for from a B2B perspective? Like, is someone going to want to spend their free time? Because I consume YouTube content for entertainment. Mm-hmm. So do I want to spend my free time on the B2B side? Like, depends on what it is. Like manufacturing or something, like trucking, so it depends on the industry. But then also from a work perspective, I would go and look at really deep dive reviews on software.
For research.
Yeah. Like when we're switching to like a new HR thing, or we're going to switch to the project management tool, I'd probably do that. Any of the stuff that we use that's video products, I definitely watch reviews on all that stuff. And, there's some great brands that, like Black Magic, different ones that we use, that they have great example videos. They have tons of stuff. So there are brands that like commit to being content creators, to be experts in the content creator space. It's just like, you really got to know what you're talking about and commit to it. That needs to be like a major part of your job. You need to assign someone to it and be like, we're going to be experts in this space, and then we're going to go after it, and go and find all the major players in the space, develop a list of who they are, and then get them on your show and just go that route. And that definitely helps. But yeah, as far as services go, I think you can. You would still want to figure out what people are talking about in that space, do a ton of research, and then figure out how to kind of overlap and get the brand's story tied into the story that's happening in that. I don't want to call it a vertical, but it's really like a content theme.
Yeah.
and there's just different news cycles that are happening, and figure out how you intersect with that. And if you're doing something like over here that's like off topic, it's just harder to get recognized. So it's like kind of like, think about it like streams of content flowing, right? And you just like, you can paddle upstream, you can be over here in a different one, or you can like get in that, and then you're going to move faster. Yeah. So
is there any other advice you give to, it could be any, like a creator or a brand starting out, aside from what we said, like that they should be doing?
Well, I was talking to someone the other day. They came to the office, and they're like, I'd gone on this trip filming, and they were looking at the gear I had, and they're kind of come by your office and take a look at it and have you give us some recommendations. I want to be filming some stuff. I'm like, okay. So they were looking at my travel kit, and I was showing all this stuff, and I was like, well, what are you guys doing? They're like, well, we're going to film videos, weekly videos to go with like this radio show that we have. I was like, oh, is it going to be like, it's going to be on YouTube? Yeah. Is it going to be like a podcast video version? They're like, yeah. I was like, well, this is not the equipment you want. What you want is this. And I showed them a completely different setup, how to streamline it all. They're just like taking notes. And, I think that's like part of it. Is like, you want to have the right setup, and you want to have the right type of, simplify it, like something that's repeatable, something you can do that, you have, it's like not this huge pain every time you want to do it. I mean, it's our podcast in here. We know exactly how to set it up, even if the room is a wreck before you start, like it was today. We're not going to talk about it. Water under the bridge. It only takes us like 20, 30 minutes to set it up, and then it's done. Everybody knows, we know we're going to edit it. It's like you develop like your process. So you do need to like commit to doing it. So if you're going to stick your toe in the water, I would say research, and maybe this is a good time to talk about the most important things for YouTube. Research I don't want to say necessarily competitors, but people who are doing it right in your space. Mm-hmm. Be honest about your space that you're in and what you're trying to do. Be very specific about who you think your audience is. And people give different advice about this, and I'm a little conflicted on it. But, there are people that say create content for yourself and like draw your audience in, because if you create content you like and then your audience likes it, then that's a good combination. Like, but it's like, what if you like something stupid, and no one likes it? You can be too specific. So I think what really does help is to think about, what does our audience need? What do they want? What do they find entertaining? Not always exactly like, what do I think I want? So you need to post some stuff. You need to be dedicated to looking at the data. Testing. Being really, I don't want to say specific, but being really intentional around your keywords, your thumbnail. I think the thumbnail is the hardest thing to design. I was going to ask you just about the thumbnail. Because it's like, it is a science. And there's so many AI tools that you can plug in. vidIQ, TubeBuddy, like different things that people like to use for either like trending topics and that kind of thing, which can really help for a brand where if you don't really know what you want to create content on, but you want to do something that's popular and that like your brand could intersect with. I think that's a great tool. Just look at the trending topics, select all the different brands that and influencers that you're like, oh, all these people are doing what we would want to do. So let's see what they're doing, and then it'll kind of assess and give you topical ideas. But there's a combination of like keywords, description, title, and thumbnail that make this recipe, and then all of that has to support the content you create, and then all of the content you create has to be the most interesting part has to be wedged in like the first 10 seconds. So that the audience understands this is what I'm getting into, so that the thumbnail pays off for them very quickly, or else they'll drop. And so it is more of a science than I wish it was. I wish I just started a YouTube channel like 15 years ago and already had like 300,000 subscribers by now. Wouldn't that be nice? Because then you can do whatever you want. You already have your audience, and the algorithm isn't as big of a deal. unfortunately.
Are there any myths about the YouTube algorithm you'd like to bust or emphasize that you think are totally true?
I'm me and the YouTube algorithm are like, we're having a DTR right now because we had been apart for a minute.
Now
I had not posted in a while. Got back, was posting some of our published content we own the rights for. Getting back into posting our stuff, and it's like, I did all the right things, got some good traction, and then it just drops off again. And you're just like, I don't really understand, is it I'm posting too much? Am I posting too similar content? There's like all these things you can get scored and ranked for. And all the AI stuff is saying, you're doing great. This is a 97 out of 100, And so there's little things, like those things that I talked about, are really important. Like you do have to have the content up front. And I think committing to an audience too. I think for us, we've played around a little bit with different audience groups to see what people would like. I mean, it's subtle tweaks. I mean, you can get, say like a brand could go after like a very specific group, like a very like more like technical interests versus like wider general public. That's just like, I'm just going to consume this and that's interesting. It's not like someone who's like digging deep into it. Like if it was a healthcare brand, it'd be like, well, that this research study says this. And it's like, that's different than just like general life health principles.
Yeah.
So playing around with that, like knowing what your audience is and sticking with that audience, that's part of it. I do think that really does matter because the algorithm doesn't really know. I was given advice to not mix up your formats, meaning long form podcast versus short form, like to separate those. I don't really know if that's true anymore because they came out. YouTube has since released like the podcast like automatic playlist. So it's like, hey, this is a podcast, and it treats it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I think, the algorithm does. Another one that I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it does seem to help, although it's not always consistent, is posting shorts along with your content. I don't think you have to post multiple times a week or a day. Sometimes I've seen for our channel, it can be like a negative, just like pumping stuff out.
Yeah, too much.
Because YouTube's like, okay, we've given you enough. Like,
we're done.
We'll give you some more viewers later, but not right now. You've like used up
your quota.
All your views.
We're here.
But I have seen like other channels. I think it's maybe like professional wrestling or something like that. Like pumps out like hundreds of a month, and it just cranking it out. But for us, for the stuff that we post, I do notice that that there seems to be if a video is growing, and it does take sometimes 3 or 4 days, like post, grow. And if I post another one, growth stops on that one. I've just noticed that. Now that might keep growing over time. Like we have certain ones that are just, people love that video and the algorithm loves that video. And every month it just keeps feeding people to it. And it just grows tens, thousands, views over this one video. And then there's maybe this other video. I don't know why people love that one and the algorithm loves it too. And even if I try to make stuff like that one, it doesn't always add up. But that's okay. So that's just for me. Now I noticed so I would say sometimes posting too much, especially for a new channel, might not help. I would say watch it and see when your views start to drop. So like you see the spike and you're like, oh, I'm growing. I'm getting like views, whatever that is, whatever that number is. And then when it starts to decline, it's like, now it's time to post the next one. So that would be probably my advice there. But, there's no shortage of experts out there that will tell you lots of stuff if you want to go and scrub through YouTube and watch there. I think the biggest, most important thing is the content, the thumbnail, the first 10 seconds, the title, the description, and the tags all have to be in harmony with each other.
So only a few things.
It's like cooking without a recipe. where you're like, oh, I'm going to put these ingredients in. At least it is for me. And I'm like, that doesn't taste right. Ooh, let's add a little bit of this and that. And then you try to get the right combination to get the recipe. And then you find out that it was wrong when you don't get all the views you wanted. And then you find out it's right when all of a sudden, you're like, oh, why did this one do 10 times better than the other one?
The secret formula.
Yeah. So
do you feel like there's a sweet spot for duration on like podcast content, like 30 minutes, an hour, or just free for all?
Yeah. I think more than anything, it just needs to be what your audience wants and just not something that's just interesting to them. So like certain audiences, they go like, when you think about podcasting, I just think Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they just ramble on there sometimes, but you know, a lot of that is like you're just dropping in and you're just listening to them have a conversation. So there's certain episodes I'm like, this is boring.
You're multitasking.
Yeah. So it just needs to be interesting. It just needs to be, I think, you know, eloquently spoken, or like interesting insights, or just not too staged.
Yeah.
Especially for a podcast, you know, if you're going to put it on YouTube. So that kind of thing, like it's not overly done, but like prepared enough that it's not like, oh, you look unprepared, you know, you don't want that. So it's tough. I mean, like I said, it's even you look at these people that have done it for a long time, it's hard to take a ton of notes off that. I know another thing that people are almost not my coffee ever. I know another thing that I see a lot of people doing now is live streams. Rather than producing videos, they'll just, hey, we're streaming at this time, and they'll just stream and they'll have a conversation. They'll go over a topic. They'll talk about something. So it's almost just like a live stream version of a podcast, which can be a little more off the cuff, but I think that is another one of those things that they realized, oh, our audience wants this. So I'm going to go that route. I don't have to produce videos. I just know if I do a weekly stream, I'm going to get X amount of 100,000 people on here, and then it does the job. So there's lots of things you can do on there. It's just playing around with like, what does your audience engage with and what has the biggest return?
It's nice to not have to produce it for the sake of like time. Because I read something on Substack about a creator who was spending $15K to produce one video, and she wasn't monetizing enough for her channel to even be worth it, because she was producing like Food Network quality videos on her YouTube. So I would love to talk a little bit more about what is monetizing. How can people monetize on the platform? Yeah.
Well, there's multiple ways you can make money on YouTube. You know, there's like I think they just lowered it to where it used to be 1,000 subscribers and then 4,000 watch hours. In order to get to the first level of monetization. I think they bumped it down to like 503,000, or it might have been.
Wow.
I have to figure out. That might be wrong. I just remember the last time that I got the notifications. But that first tier was, last time I checked on it, it was more like you can sell different things like badges, and you know, you can, for live streams, they can super chat you, and people can pay for their thing to go to the top, their
exclusive conversation.
Yeah. And so like during those live streams, that's another reason a lot of people do the live streams, is the super chats. They'll make people just give them a tip, like, hey, here's $50, here's $30. I want my question to be answered, so you know, here's $20. And they're just like, all right, let's do all the super chats. And they're like, oh, we just made like $500 here, you know. Wow. And then they'll monetize the content too. So the other thing is obviously the ad content, and now YouTube is also placing multiple ads throughout to maximize your money. So, you know, it depends on your vertical, whether you're going to make $5 per 1,000 views, or you're going to make up to 30, I guess, like depending on what it is. So, you know, the idea is that like, if your channel is popular, I like to think about your content as like a digital real estate or something. Like once you make it, it sits there and it goes up in value.
Yeah.
Just like property would. If you have a big channel, people will go back. They discover your channel, they're going to go watch all your old stuff, and the algorithm will feed that back to them as well. You're like, I'll get fed stuff. I'm like, this is a video from a year ago. I'll watch it because I haven't heard it yet. You know, it's interesting. And so if you're doing it right, then yeah, I mean, think about that. Like your channel grows, you start to get, you know, you start at 1,000 followers and you're at 10,000 and you're 100,000, 150,000, 300. I mean, a lot of the people that are doing it and you're seeing their content, they're over 300,000 subscribers a lot of times, you know, up to 1 million or beyond. And so those folks are really generating like a good bit of revenue off of those things. So that's just, you know, ads, selling products. You can sell premium memberships. That's another thing. So, you know, set your price and say, if you subscribe, you get it here. A lot of times that was all done through Patreon, and now it's like you can do it all through YouTube. You don't have to leave the channel. So you can do that. Premium content, different levels for a monthly fee. And then also, you know, ads, just like not the embedded ads, but just the YouTube, just partnership ads and whatever, like we all hear in podcasts,
product placement,
all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, other than that, you can you can link out and sell your products, you know, do all your stuff and then say, go over to my website and buy this digital product. I follow people for lots of different things and they do, you know, various levels of that in different ways. And then for influencers, obviously there's like placements where they're promoting stuff and there's like, go check this out. And then they get their affiliate links and all that stuff.
All the things.
But yeah, there's lots of ways to make money on. I mean, and even for our thing, it's like, we're slowly growing. I mean, we're still every month, we probably get 2 subscribers a day to our channel. And it's like, which isn't enough. I'd like to get like 200 a day. But I'll take 2 a day. That's fine for now. And we make a little bit of money off of it, monetize, just off the ones that are super popular. And so part of it is like, you got to enjoy it. You need to enjoy what you're doing. If you're going to post content on YouTube, you better enjoy it, or else you're just going to get burnt out because you have to think about it all the time, unfortunately. So.
Are there any accounts? Obviously, everyone's tastes are different. Like I use YouTube differently than you do because I'm trying to learn how to do things mostly versus entertainment. But are there any examples of accounts that you think do just a really good job?
I'm trying to think of. They're also different. So I think, you know, there's the people that are, it's almost like their vlog type thing, to use an old term, where it's like, hey, today I'm going to go do this thing. So I might watch that if it's about running, but so many of them are the same. A lot of them can be the same. So I like, you know, I think those people, it's like their personality and they're doing something interesting. And so it's like this mixture. So as far as like doing it right, it's trying to figure out what a brand or someone listening to this could extract from that to then try to do it the way they're doing it. So like, you know, there's tons of people that have great thumbnails, great topics, different things, but it's just, how does all that kind of fit into what the largest amount of people find interesting, you know? And it's like, what's the subculture of your viewer that is going to attract them in, that they'll find that the most interesting. And so it's not really like an apples to apples comparison of like ones that are doing it well. Like I will say on the podcast side of things on YouTube and podcasts in general, people who do what you're doing, which is letting the guests talk and ramble. Like so often I'll listen and it'll be like people interrupt them, or they try to say, well, yeah. And they're like, try to be the expert. And it's like, you're not, I thought this person was the guest. Just let them talk, you know? So that's part of it. Like if you're watching long form content on YouTube, I think that's part of it. So it's tough to say. I mean, if you gave me some example, like if we were talking about different audience or topical or themes or something, I could probably like be like, well, in this space, I kind of like this one. I would say like, I like, it's random, but Bill Maher's Club Random. Do you ever listen to that?
No, but I'll have to look at it.
So it's great. I mean, like, cause you know, he has his, HBO show, HBO. Yeah. I think it's on HBO. Real Time. And that's just like, different things, politicians, authors, usually people that disagree, and then they come on there and talk about some political topic. But on his Club Random podcast, it's basically filmed almost like a set like this. They're just sitting around, and he usually just has a lot of times people he disagrees with on there, and they'll just sit down and they'll have a drink and they just have like a casual conversation. And it's just, that's the kind of stuff like you want to see. You're like, I don't think I'm supposed to see this.
Peek behind
like
the curtain.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I think is interesting and that makes for really great video podcast content, is when it's just like super casual. I think that's what people like about Joe Rogan, like, and why he's so popular. It's just super casual, and so things that are like a peek behind the curtain, you're like, this is like a private conversation I think I'm listening to, and they're being honest. Yeah. So I think that's part of it as well. But yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Well, that's all the time we have. Anything else we didn't touch on that you think we have to tell people about YouTube?
I would say don't just expect to get results on YouTube right away. In fact, I would even work with, and it doesn't have to be us, but I would say if you really you're a brand and you want to try to dig into YouTube and really leverage it, work with someone who understands YouTube and all the ins and outs, because it is very specific. You can post and get like no views versus you can post and get traction. It is just like a whole different thing, as opposed to like, social strategy, whether that's TikTok, Instagram, whatever for organic. Paid is a different thing. But on YouTube, it is paid is a completely separate thing from organic subscriber model on YouTube. You can do the paid strategy and get a lot of people to see your stuff. But that doesn't mean anything in the end. Like, I don't think it will see, like, people saw it and you might get a couple clicks, but you have to pay a lot for that. So it's just a matter of knowing what you're getting into and expecting it to be, I'll just say it's a professional channel. Like, in order to get traction, like, you do have to be very strategic. So
awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening or watching the Between Two Pixels podcast.